Hello everyone, my name is Ryan Stark and I'm a product training coordinator at WellnessLiving. WellnessLiving will be implementing Form Builder, which is a tool that businesses can use to assemble forms and choose from a variety of options when doing so. In addition, forms can be attached to various client and staff flows, such as booking and registration, and be accessed by clients via direct URLs. Furthermore, Form Builder will be a paid feature which starts with a 60-day free trial. Once the 60-day free trial has ended, customers will be automatically enrolled to Form Builder and incur a charge of $29 per month USD. As you can see, I am in WellnessLiving, currently signed in as a staff member. And if I want to get to forms, it's very simple. All I want to do is just go up to the app drawer, click there, navigate down to view all, click view all, and then I can see that forms is right here. And I could click forms to be brought into forms, or additionally what I could do is I could always go to the three dots there and I could always pin it to my top nav bar if I wanted. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. And once I do that, you can see it is now within my top nav bar and I'm going to click on it to be brought to forms. This is the Form Builder page and acts more of a central hub for Form Builder. So as you can see, we actually have two forms already created and we can see some of their details in the columns below as well. So we can see here under form name, it's going to list the form name. So we have training fitness level form and yoga form. Then we have the associated services, which is going to indicate to staff how many services a particular form is tied to, which we'll get into more details shortly. But for the fitness and training level form, we can see there are 3 associated services that it's tied to, and then the yoga form has 1. Then we have the last response date. So with this one, it's going to indicate the last time a client had responded to a particular form, and we can see the number of responses to a particular form as well under number of responses. So again, for the training and fitness level form, we can see the last time a client had responded to this form was February 23rd, 2022. And then for the yoga form, it has not been responded to as of yet by any clients. And then of course, as I mentioned, number of responses is going to list the number of responses. And we can see for training and fitness level form, it has 2 responses, while the yoga form currently has 0. Then right here we have accept responses. So we do have an on-off slider for accept responses, which staff can toggle on or off, depending on if they would like to accept responses to a particular form or not. Then we have our action menu with the 3 dots. So if I click on that, there is an option to edit an existing form. You can view the responses of that form. You can copy the direct URL for the form. You can duplicate the form, or you can delete it as well. We will also go into edit and view responses in more detail shortly. At the top, we also have a search function, which can be used to look up forms, as well as a filter button, as you can see here, which can be used to aid in the search or extrapolate the required data that you want within this area. So what I'm going to do right now is I'm just going to go up to add form, which would allow a staff member to add and create a new form within the business. So let's take a look at this now. From this area, staff members can name the form, then create and customize the form with the options and fields that you see on the left. In addition, staff members can also select to accept responses for the form from this area as well, with another on-off slider for accepting responses, which we can see right here. To create a name for the form, all we have to do is go up to the top left, and we can see there is a pencil icon where we can select it. And then as a staff member, we could put in whatever name for the form that we want. Also, for each of these options or fields, there is going to be an on-off slider button for required field. If this is in the off position, then the client is not required to fill out that particular question or field to complete the form. However, if it is in the on position, then the question or field will require the client to fill it out before proceeding and completing the form. So what I'm going to do from this point on is I'm actually just going to go through each of these fields and give a brief overview of each one. And then after I'm done that, I'm going to go into a completed form and we can see what it looks like. By selecting short answer, a short answer question field can be added and created within the form. Then we have section divider. So by selecting section divider, we can create a dividing line with an optional heading and subheading within the form, which can assist in providing a more organized and aesthetically pleasing look. And then we have page break. So if we select page break, it will split the form into multiple pages, which a client would be required to click through when filling out the form. Then we have long answer. So by selecting long answer, a long answer question field can be added and created within the form as well. Then we have drop down. So if I click on drop down, we can add a drop down where a client can select one or more applicable answers from a drop down list. For radio, this would allow clients to select exactly one answer from a predefined radio list. Then by selecting text, we could insert plain text with an optional heading. For signature, this would of course prompt the client to input their signature. And then rating, by selecting rating, we can set it up so that the client can answer a question with a rating scale. The scale is selectable by staff during setup for 1 to 5 or 1 to 10. Then we have initials. So this is similar to how signature would work and will prompt a client to input their initials. And then last but not least, we have multiple choice where we can create multiple choice questions. So let's take a look at a completed form. This is a form that has already been completed and set up within this business. As we can see within the top left, this form has been given a name, which is training and fitness level form. To my left, we can see all of the same options and fields that we could select from when creating our forms. And in this area are all of these selections, and we will go through that in succession. As already mentioned, within the left-hand side, we can see all of these selectable options or fields that can be used to create our forms. So let's go through this in succession as I had mentioned. So for short answer questions, we can see what it looks like in number 1. For a section divider, it would look just like this. For long answer, it would look just as we have it in number 2. For a dropdown, we can see what it would look like in number 3. For a radio button, we can see what it would look like for number 4. For a multiple choice question, we can see what it would look like for number 5. If we decided to click on text and add text, we can see what that would look like right here. For signature, we can see that here. For initials, we can also see this right here. For rating, we can see that for number 8. And then if I want to insert a page break, I could do so, and it will show up at the bottom right now. So let's insert a page break, and we can see what that would look like right here. To dive a little bit more into detail, let's look at each of these options from a setup perspective. So if I clicked on short answer, this is what it would look like when you're setting it up, where you have the option to put in your question. There is an optional subheading, and then this is the area where the client would put in their actual answer. And of course, on all of the options or fields that are fillable, we would have this on-off required field slider. For section divider, we can see this here, and if I click on it, again, we have an optional heading and subheading. For our long answer question, if I click on it, again, there's an area to put in your question, an optional subheading where the client would actually put in their answer, and then we have the same on-off slider. Number 3, we can see our drop-down, and with the drop-down, again, we can put in our question, an optional subheading. We have 2 options, one being a single selection, the other being a multiple selection, and then we can see all of the different selections that I created for this particular question. And we can also see for the drop-down, if I select here, we can see all the same selections that I created. For number 4, we can see that this is a radio button. So if I click on it, it's going to open up like this, and we're going to have the option to put in our question, optional subheading, and then the additional selections that I created for this. And of course, for anything like this, we can get rid of them, so subtract, or we can add additional fields in there. And then if we go down, we have our multiple choice for number 5. So this is what it looks like. And if I click on that, again, it looks very similar to the others where we can put in our question, we can put in our subheading, and then we can put in whatever selections or fields we want within that particular question itself. And then we have the text option, which if it is selected, This is what it would look like in setup. So we have 2 areas to put in text. Then of course we have our signature. So again, we can name it whatever we want. We can put in a optional subheading for it. And then we have what it would look like to the client as well. Of course, we also have our initials, and that works just as a signature does, where we can put in a title for it. We can put in a optional subheading. And then again, this is what the client would see when they're inputting their initials on the form. Then last but not least, we have our rating. So this is what it would look like during setup, where we can put in what we want it to say. So maybe you want to word it as a question, as I have here. You can put in the optional subheading, and then the staff member will actually get to choose what kind of scale point they want. So it could be a 5-point scale or a 10-point scale. I currently have it set to 10. So another option that we have is from here, we could click on the arrow to move it up. So maybe I wanted it here, but it doesn't look right to me. I also have the option to delete it, but I don't want to delete this one. What I want to do is click and drag it up. So one of the options that we have within Form Builder on all of the options here or fields is we can go to this area right here and we can click and drag it where we want. So let's just drag this up above signature, just like so. And I think that looks great. So we're going to leave it there. So next what we want to do is we're going to go ahead and look at settings for a form. I'm now back into a form that has not yet been created. And what we want to do is look at the settings for forms whenever we're creating one. So to get there, whenever we are creating a form or whenever we are editing a form, the settings will always be at the top right corner within the Form Builder page. So we can see this whenever we're creating the form. And what I want to do is just click on settings. Within form settings, we can see that there is form style. Under form style, there is an on-off slider, which will allow for the numbering on question fields within the created form. If we navigate down, we can see form requirements and client registration. Under client registration, there is an on-off slider for form is required for new clients after registration, which means clients can fill out and submit their form post-registration. So if the on-off slider for form is required for new clients after registration is selected, then a second on-off slider will appear for form is required during registration. If this is selected, then all new clients will be required to submit the form during the registration process. And then we have service bookings. So there is an on-off slider underneath service bookings for form is required after the following services are booked for the first time. And we can select this to be off or on. So as we can see, there is a table where staff members can select existing appointments, classes, events, and assets and associate them with the created form. Under this, there are also 2 on-off sliders. The on-off slider for form is required during booking process will control the function to allow clients to submit the form before their service booking is completed or not. The on-off slider for form is required every time the service is booked will control the function to make the client submit the form each time the service is booked or not. And then if we go down, we have store purchases. So there is a on-off slider for form is required for the first time following the store items are purchased, which will require the client to submit the form the first time they purchase the selected item in the store. And we can see that there is another table, which we can see right here, where the staff member can select existing purchase options, products, event purchases, and gift cards, and associate them with the created form. Underneath this, we can see 2 on-off sliders as well. So the on-off slider for form is required during purchase process would control the function to require the client to submit the form before the purchase is completed or not. And then the on-off slider for form is required every time the store item is purchased would control the function to require the client to submit the form every time they purchase a particular store item, not just the first time. Then we have response options, and we can see there are additional on-off sliders. For the first one, we can see that this is send response receipts to all clients, and clients will receive an email notification after submitting this form. Underneath that, we have an on-off slider for send response receipts to staff members. And underneath that, it says staff with the staff role permission receive response notifications will receive an email notification when this form is submitted. And then lastly, we have a on-off slider for send response receipts to additional recipients. And it says here, email addresses inputted below will receive an email notification when the form is submitted. So you can put in additional emails to have an email notification sent whenever the form is also submitted. So with that being said, let's navigate back to the main form builder page. Within this area of form builder, which is essentially the form builder hub, what I can do is also edit an existing form. So we can see we already have the training and fitness level form, which is an existing form. And if I go over to the action menu and click on the three dots, one of the options is edit. So I'm going to click on edit. Once I click on edit, we will be brought to the created form. Within here, we can make different types of edits to the form and to our liking. So if I wanted to change the name of the form, I could go up to the top, click the pencil icon, and make any alterations as I wish. And we can also make edits to any of the questions or fields within the form as well. To do this, all you have to do is go to a question or a field that you want to edit, click on it, and then you'll get a confirmation required pop-up. And it will say, changes made to this field will only apply to future responses. Are you sure that you want to edit this field? So if you click on go back, then you're going to go back and it will not be edited. Or you can click on edit and it'll bring you here where you can actually edit the form how you wish. So you can edit this question within the form. This functionality exists for all of the fields or questions that you have put into your form. So I could click on number 4 and it would give me the functionality to edit the form how I wish. And just as you saw before, the same functionality exists when editing a form as when you're setting it up, where I could click and drag the form or the question within the form wherever I want. I could click the arrows for this question to be moved up in the form or moved down in the form, or I could delete this question from the form if I wished. In addition to this, whenever we are editing a form, we can also see we have our settings. So I could click on that and we can look at the settings that are already arranged and created for this particular form. So again, we can see that everything has been already selected for this particular form for service bookings. This particular form will be associated with the following appointments. So we can see that it will be associated for follow-up sessions, first consultation, and the individual private yoga sessions. And there are no other classes or events or assets tied to this or associated with this form, only these particular appointments. And again, you can see all the same functionality here whenever you are editing a form. The only difference or addition, whenever you have a form that's already created, when you go to edit, it will have a direct forms URL within the settings area because it is created, and once the form's created, it's going to create a URL which is selectable, and you can also go here and copy and paste it. If I go back to this area, whenever we are in the editing form area for a particular form, we can also click on view responses here, but I will get into that in just a moment. So again, let's go back to the main area for form builder, and then we'll move on to viewing responses. To view a form's responses, there are a couple ways of doing so. So again, I'm going to use the training and fitness level form as an example. So to view the responses, of course, we could do what we just saw, which was go into edit form, and then you could click on view responses from there. Or from the action menu again, you can click on the three dots for the particular form that you're interested in, and you can click on view responses, which we will do right now. Within the responses page of a particular form, we can see the following. We can see we have a date range selector, where if I select it, I can choose and select a particular date range that I want. There is a search bar which I could utilize, and of course we have a filter with the following filter options. There's also a table with columns under it, as you can see, and we will go through that together. Under client name, it's going to list the client's name and show all the clients who have submitted that particular form. Under that, we can see the client's name, the client's information, and of course, their profile picture. There is also source, and that's going to show you the source that the client had used to fill out their form. And source can show a few different things depending on where the client had filled out their form. So for Robert and Simon, we can see that it says direct linked, which indicates to the staff member that they had filled out the form via a direct URL link. Some of the other things that could come up under source where clients can fill out a form is registration, booking, new purchase, and as I mentioned, direct URL. We also have response submitted date and response submitted time, which essentially is to indicate and show the time and date that the client had filled out the form. So as an example, for Robert, we can see that he's filled out his form on February 23rd, 2022 at 1:39 p.m. and Simon had filled out his form on February 23rd, 2022 at 1:42 p.m. In addition, we also have an action menu where if I select it for Robert, we have a few different options, which are show, export to CSV, export to PDF, print, and delete. So for Robert's form, his submitted form, what I want to do is see what he had put down, what his answers are to the questions in that form that he had submitted. So I will click on show. Once I do this, we can see some of the following details. So we can see created by, and it's going to have the date and time and who created it, and last modified by, and it's going to have the date and time as well as the staff member who had modified it or created it. And then if we go down, we can see the questions in the form and the corresponding answers from the client, and they are all there. If I go back to the action menu, of course, as I said, we can always click on export CSV or export PDF. So we could use those as the staff member or the business to get additional information. We could tally it and use it in different ways for those functions. In addition, if I wanted to click on the client from this area, we will see that there is a new section at the bottom that presents. So with this, we have the following options, which are select all, deselect all, again, export to CSV, export to PDF, print, or delete. So again, this just gives us some more options. The functionality to export to a CSV file or PDF file can prove to be very useful for organization and analytics, and we can choose to view either the CSV or PDF file for a particular client only, or for all clients on the response list within the chosen date range. So since I have select all selected for Robert and Simon, let's see what it looks like in a CSV file. So I'm going to click on this, and then we will open it up together. Within the CSV file, we can see the following. So we can see the timestamp, which indicates when the client had actually filled out the form or completed it. So it's going to show you the date and time. It's going to show you the client's email. And then at the top, we will have the questions that are present in the actual form itself, and then the answers for each client. So for the questions on the top, I can see that Robert's answers are in this line, and I can see the same for Simon within this line. And within this last column here, we can see for the signature that both of the clients had signed. We also have the functionality to export as a PDF, as I had mentioned. So let's look at that together as well. So this has been opened in a PDF file, and we can see it has the name of the form, so training and fitness level form, and this is the client's name, so this is completed by Robert. And we can see the form history, so it was created by, and it shows you the staff member's name and the date and time they created the form. And then we can see the same thing for the modified date and time and who created it. And then we can also see all the questions and the answers from the client. And we can see the same thing here for Simon as well. So let's just go back to the main form builder page again. And then we're going to go on and we're going to look at notifications. With Form Builder, there will also be some additions to client and staff notifications, as I had mentioned. So let's go ahead and take a look at them now. So to get to our notifications, all we have to do is go up to our app drawer and go to Setup. Then once there, we just navigate down to Notifications and we can click for the drop down and then we can choose client or staff notifications. I'm going to start with client notifications. Once I click into client notifications, what I want to do is just navigate down and we will see there is a new area for forms. If I expand this for client notifications, there will be a new client notification for forms for form submission receipt, which is sent after a client successfully submits a form, and form reminder, which is sent to the client to remind them of outstanding forms on their profile. Notifications for forms, whether it be through client notifications or staff notifications, will still retain the functionality to enable email notifications, SMS notifications, or push notifications as well. They also retain the ability to edit any of these templates by selecting the pencil icon. What I want to do now is just go into the form submission receipt for the forms notification, and we're going to take a look at that. So let's go into this by clicking on Edit this template. Now that we are within the form submission receipt template for the email template under forms, I can navigate down to setup and I can see the email send rules for this particular notification. Under that, we can see that there are two on-off slider switches. The first one, if enabled, will send only to specific client types. So if I enable it, I can select specific client types that are created within this particular business. The second on-off slider, if enabled, will send only to specific client groups, which again, I can select specific client groups that are set up within this particular business. Underneath that, we have our compose email and sender information, which we can see is the from name, the from email address, choose to send it a blind carbon copy or a carbon copy, and then we have our subject name, of course, as well. Underneath that, we have our variables, which we can put into the email notification template as well. And on the left-hand side, we have all of our variables, and then we have the description of all those variables as well. And then, of course, just like the already existing functionality, we can go over to a variable if we want it, and we can copy it to clipboard, and then we can copy and paste it into the below email notification as well. So if we navigate all the way to the bottom, we can see we have the same toolbar that is already present on our notifications, and we can see the email template for this particular notification as well. And it would read, "Dear John Doe, thank you for filling in whatever form this is. This is a receipt to confirm we've received your response on," and then it'll show the date and time that they received the response to that form on. So what I want to do is I'm going to take a look at this notification, and I'm going to send myself a test email, and we'll take a look at what that would look like as an example. And of course, as we can see right here, this is just a test email that I sent for the form submission receipt, so we can get an idea and a look at what it would look like. So we can see it all right there. For client notifications, there is also the form reminder, and this is sent to the client to remind them of outstanding forms on their profile. So let's take a look at that as well. So once we are within the edit form reminder template for the email template, under setup, we can see that it looks very similar to the previous notification. So under email send rules, again, we have an on-off slider where we can enable it to send only to specific client types, and then I could select a specific client type that we have set up in the business already. Then we have another on-off slider for send only to specific client groups, and if enabled, I could select specific client groups that are set up within the business. Under compose email, it has the same stuff, so same idea. We have the from name, the from email address. We can look at send carbon copy or send blind carbon copy and make selections here. Then of course we have our subject line, and then we have the variables as well with the same functionality where we can see the variable, the description of the variable. Then we have copy to clipboard, which we could copy to clipboard and paste in the below notification template. And again, we have the same toolbar, again, which is present across all of the notifications. And we can see that this is the notification right now for the form reminder. And it would say, Dear John Doe, this is a reminder to complete the outstanding form. It would show the form name on your profile. Please follow the link below to sign in to your account and fill in the forms. So we can see what it looks like there. Again, what I want to do is I'm just going to send myself a test email and then we'll take a look at it again. I've sent myself a test email for the form reminder. So again, this is just an example and this is what it would look like from the client's perspective. So again, we can get a look at this email. Next, for notifications, what I want to do is hop into staff notifications. So I'm going to select staff notifications. Then once in staff notifications, all I want to do is navigate down and we will see forms. If I expand it and scroll down, we will see new form response. And under that, it will say sent to a staff member informing them that a form has been submitted. So again, we have the same functionality, just like all our forms where we can enable email, SMS, or push notifications, and we could edit the templates for those as well. So for this one, I want to look at the email notification for this new form response for a staff notification. So I am currently within staff notifications and we're looking at the edit new form response template. So this notification is to be sent to all email addresses that had been input into the response option section of the form settings page that we had looked at previously. In addition, this can be sent to other email addresses as well, not just those associated with staff profiles. So looking at this template under setup, we can see the email send rules. And essentially what this section is saying right now is the system will check if there had been any new responses within the past 1 hour. If there have been new responses to a particular form in the past hour, then an email will be sent. However, if there had been no new form responses within the past hour, then there will be no email sent. And again, we can adjust the parameters, increase it or decrease it, and we can choose by minute, hour, or day. Underneath, for compose email, we have the same sender information. So from name, from email address, we could choose to send a carbon copy or blind carbon copy. Again, we have the subject line and we have our variables as well. Again, same functionality. We can see the variables, we can see the description, and then we could copy to clipboard and then copy and paste the variable down below. We have the same toolbar, and then this is the notification itself, which would be sent out to staff members. So we can see it here and it would say, Dear John Doe, your form, it would have the form name, has this many responses to it, and those would be the new responses. So again, what I want to do is I'm just going to go up and I'm going to send myself a test email, and then we're going to look at it as an example. So here is the test email that I sent myself. And again, this is just as an example for the design layout and what it would look like if this had been sent to a client, so we can see it all right there. With Form Builder, there are also some new staff roles as well. So we're going to go in and we're going to take a look at the new staff roles that are there for forms. So to do this, I'm going to go up to staff from setup. I'm going to click that drop down and then I can click on staff roles. Now that we're within staff roles, what I want to do is go to edit the staff role, and then we're going to navigate down to the new forms section. So to do this, let's choose the instructor staff role. I'm going to go to the pencil icon and I'm going to click on edit staff role. Once there, what I want to do is navigate all the way down to the very bottom where we will see the new forms section. From here, there are two different areas where we could place a check mark. One is for manage forms. And if this is selected, then this would allow staff members to add, edit, and delete forms. Then we have view responses, where if this is selected, this would allow a staff member to view form responses. So depending on how you want to set up your business with the staff rules, it really depends. If you want to have both of these enabled, that means that the staff member underneath the staff role will be able to view form responses and be able to add, edit, and delete forms. Now, if you just wanted to have a staff member to have the functionality to view responses, then you would want to make sure that manage forms is off. That way, the staff member will not be able to add, edit, or delete forms, and all they could do is view responses. So once we are happy with our selections, what we can do from there is go to click on Save. And then that's it. And we could go in and adjust the staff roles for all of the positions that we have within the business as we see fit. So from here, let's go back into Form Builder. So I'm just going to go up to my top nav bar where I have it pinned, and I'm going to click on Forms. All right, so what we're going to do now is we're going to go in and we're going to show what filling out a form from the client's perspective will look like. And we'll see that in conjunction with the selections that a staff member would make when creating or editing a form in the back end. So to do this from the Form Hub, what I want to do is we're going to use this training and fitness level form as an example again. So what I want to do is just go to Action, go to Edit, and then we're going to go to Settings. And again, we've been through the settings, but for this example, I'm just going to go to Service Bookings. And for appointments, we can see that the selected appointments I have here to work in conjunction with this particular form are follow-up sessions, first consultation, and then the private yoga session that's individual. So what I want to do is I'm just going to leave this as enabled for form is required during the booking process. So this means that if a client is booking this particular appointment, since I have it selected, if they're booking any of these particular appointments for the first time, then there's going to be a form that they're going to be faced with that they can fill out during the booking process. So let's go ahead and save, and we're going to take a look at that. And again, the same functionality does exist for store purchases as well, where you can select different store purchases or types. As you can see, purchase options, products, event purchases, and gift cards, and you can have the same functionality, and they can be tied to this particular form if you want to set that up. But again, we just want to focus on this right now. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to go into the client web app, sign in as a client, and we're going to go ahead and try to book a first consultation appointment, and we're going to see that the form comes up for the client to fill out. So let's take a look at that right now. So let's go ahead and save. All right, so as you can see, I am within the client web app, and I'm currently signed in as a client whose name is Julian. So from here, what I want to do is go to appointments, and we're going to go in and we're going to book that first consultation appointment because it's tied to the form that we have set up as a staff member, and it's going to require the client to fill out that form upon booking that appointment. So let's go into appointments, and we want to select our service. As I mentioned, the first consultation is tied to the form, so we're going to select that. We can select our date and time. We can see that there are a couple appointment times that are already waitlisted. So we're going to choose 11 a.m. And sure enough, we can see that our form generates right here. So we can see that the form does come up for the client to fill out, and we can see all of the questions that we had created as a staff member as well for this particular form. You can also see that since in the back end we had set all of these to be a required field, there's going to be a red asterisk, which indicates that this is required. If I tried to go and click next, it would not let me, and it would give you an error message at the top saying value is not specified, and it would say that under each piece that was made to be required by the client to fill out. So we can go ahead and we can fill this out as a client really quickly. So I'm just going to quickly put in test. And then again, we have our drop down where you can make a selection through the selections that we had created as a staff member. And then we can keep going through it, and we can see we can put in our signature as a client. So let's go ahead and do that. We can put in our initials as well. And then we have our rating system here. So let's put it to a 10, and then we can click on next. And since everything's filled out, it will allow us to proceed in this flow. So then I can complete the booking. And there we go. We have booked a appointment, right, for the first consultation, and we filled out the form as well that we had set up to be in working in conjunction with this particular appointment. So let's go ahead and go back to forms. Now that we're back into forms in the form hub, what I want to do is show another piece of functionality that we have from settings, and this is also going to be from the client's point of view. So again, using that same training and fitness level form as we had just looked at, I'm going to go to edit, then we're going to go to settings again. We're going to scroll down, and instead of having this enabled for form is required during booking process, we're going to turn that off, and instead we're going to enable form is required every time this service is booked, and we can see what that's going to look like from the client's point of view as well. So let's go ahead and save, and then we're going to go into the client web app once more. As you can see, we are back within the client web app, and I'm signed in as a client who is Julian once more. So what I did, as you saw in the back end as a staff member, I went into a form that was already made. And of course you can do this for a form that you're setting up from new as well, but I went in to edit a form and I went into settings, and then I actually disabled the form to show up during the booking process. And instead I enabled the form to be required to be filled out every time after booking the associated appointment. In this case, the first consultation, which we're going to be using for that example. So when I'm going through this, I'm going to go in and I'm going to try to book that same appointment, and you're going to see that the form doesn't come up the way that it did before. So it's not going to show up during the booking process, but it will show up in another section, which we will take a look at. So I'm just going to go in, click on appointments. I'm going to select my service, which is that first consultation because it's tied to the form that we want to generate or have come up. And then we can click on Friday. We're going to click on 2 p.m. for our time slot. And as you can see in this process, the form does not show up because again, we deselected it as a staff member for that particular form to show up during the booking process. And instead, again, we enabled it to be required to be filled out by the client every time that this particular service is booked. So although it doesn't show up in this section, we can complete the booking and it's going to show up on their profile. So if I go to my profile within the client's profile, within the client web app, we can see we have forms right over here. And if I click on that, you can see there is a new section here. Of course, we can select our date and time range. There's a search bar, and we have our filters with advanced filters within it. So also we have a new section underneath here. So it has the form name itself. So of course, we were working with the training and fitness level form, and that's the form that's tied to the first consultation appointment that we had set up within the business. Our source, we can see it's for booking. And again, it's for that first consultation appointment. And it's with the staff member Philip, and it was booked on March 25th, 2022, and then created on March 22nd, 2022. The status of this particular form is not complete. So it's an incompleted form. The client can see that. And for them to fill it out, they can click on fill in the form. And again, it's going to generate the form, and we can just put it in test for this example to fill it out quickly. And again, the client would read through the questions that you have already created, and they would input their answers within the form itself. And of course, we have our red asterisk signs that tell us that that is mandatory to fill out that particular section of the form. And you cannot complete the form as a client unless all those sections are filled out if they are marked as required or have that red asterisk. So we can keep going through, filling out the form. We can put in our signature. And of course, we can put in our rating as well. And as a client, once I'm done filling out the form, we can click on save. You'll get a confirmation at the top. I'm just going to refresh the page. And once I do this, it's going to show up as completed, and it's going to show you the completed date as well. And of course, under action, as a client, I can always click on view the form. So I can see the form itself, the date that it was completed by, and I can also see all of the questions and answers corresponding to that particular form. One more important thing to note before we carry on is from this section within the client web app underneath the client's profile under forms, clients do have a little bit more functionality here too. So what they could do is if they clicked on a particular form that they had filled out or a particular form that they had not filled out, they're going to have this bar come up at the bottom. So let's say for this particular form that we just had filled out as the client, we can click on it, and either we can select all the forms in this section, deselect all the forms, or we can also click on export to PDF or print. So if I clicked on export to PDF, as you saw before earlier in the video, it would actually come up as a PDF report that the client could use for whatever they want, or they could print it out and they could use it for whatever they see fit After that, if it's just for their own record keeping, they could print it out and keep it on record for themselves. So that being said, let's hop back to forms. So we've seen what it looks like whenever we are filling out a form from the client's perspective. What we want to do is shift that into the staff's perspective now. So what I want to do is show a couple of different functionalities as a staff member. So first thing that we want to show is I'm going to go to a client's profile, and we're going to go to a new form section that can be found within documents in a client's profile, and it's going to house all the completed or incompleted forms that a client has filled out. In addition, we can actually go to the schedule, and what I want to show you is that we can schedule an instance in this particular example, the first consultation appointment. I'm going to go ahead and schedule that, and we can see that the form is fillable from there as well. So let's go ahead, go to search, and we're going to use the same client, Julian. So we're going to click into his profile, and as the staff member, if I navigate down to documents, we can see there is the new section for forms. And again, that's going to house all of the completed or incompleted forms for this particular client. So let's click there. Once I click there, everything's going to look pretty familiar as it did in this previous section. So we can see we have a date range selector here, we have a search bar, and we have our filters as well. And of course, we have the same columns. So we have the form name, which is going to tell us the form name, the source as well, so we can see that these are for booking, when it was created, the status, if it's completed or not, when it was completed, the client's IP address, and then we have certain actions under here as well. So for a completed form, if I click on the action menu, we have a few different options. So I can show the form. So by clicking on that, we can see the completed form that the client has filled out. We can always export to CSV, we can export to PDF, and we can also print the form from here as well. For a not completed form or a form that is incomplete, what we can do is click on the action menu. Again, we can show the form if we wanted. Again, we can see that none of the questions have been answered. We can mark this as not required. We can mark it as required, so we can revert. We could copy the direct URL to this particular form, and we could send it to the client or share it with them. We could send the client a reminder, or we could print this incomplete form as well. And just as we saw in the previous section, if I click on any of these sections here, we're going to have this bar at the bottom come up where I could select all, deselect all, export to PDF, or I could print as well. So again, we have the functionality to do that. So what I'm going to do from here is I'm just going to go to the client's overview tab. As previously mentioned, what we're going to do is, as a staff member, I'm going to go in and I'm going to book an appointment for Julian, and that appointment is going to be associated with the form that we want to come up. Within the form itself, what I have done in settings is I have enabled form is required during booking process so that we can see the form come up whenever we are booking the appointment. So to do this, what I want to do is go to book an appointment and click there. Once we're within the schedule, what we want to do is book an appointment for Julian, and the appointment that we want to book is going to be one of the appointments that's associated with the form that we want to generate. So as you might have seen, whenever we were looking at that fitness level form, when we went into edit and then we went into settings, you would see that follow-up was one of the appointment types that would be in relation to that particular form, and that would generate, especially when we have the form is required during booking process enabled from that section. So to set this up and book it, I'm just going to click on this particular time slot, which is for April 1st at 1 p.m., which is a Friday. We can select our location. We can select our service. We can select our staff. So fill up, any gender, our assets, and then we can go to intake form and we can click on intake form, and then we have the option to fill out form. So let's go ahead and click that. So once we do this, you will see that training and fitness level form come up. And again, this would be for the staff member to fill out on behalf of the client from this section. So we can go ahead and do that. Again, I'm just going to use test just because this is an example. But again, if this was an actual form for clients to fill out. This is what they would actually be putting in for their answers. They'd be able to read the questions, see that red asterisk sign, and they could put in their answers, right? So let's go ahead and just do this. And then once everything's complete, once the client fills out the form, all they have to do is click on Save. And again, with that red asterisk sign, if one of these had not been completed and they try to click Save, it would not allow them to continue unless that one field or however many fields that are missed would be completed. So let's go ahead and click Save. So perfect, 8 out of 8 fields completed. And then we can book unpaid or book and pay. So right now, let's just click book unpaid. So there we go. We get a confirmation at the top for the appointment was booked successfully. And we can see that it was booked right here. And again, we have all the same functionality where we can click on it and we can scroll through to see everything as well. So that kind of functionality is the same and stays the same. So from here, what I want to do is just go right back to forms. Form Builder is an excellent tool that you now have at your fingertips to bring more organization and a more professional setting to your business. Create new forms and link them to associated services to gather the information that you want, or create more customized waivers or release forms. Personally, I think one great use of Form Builder would be to create a more robust client onboarding form for personal training so that you could ask specific questions and really gauge what the client wants out of their sessions, what fitness level they are currently at, and where they want to see themselves in the future. Again, Form Builder really is an excellent feature, and I hope that you all enjoy it as much as I do.